The text came in at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Melissa, I need to talk to you about the holiday. Your cousin Andrea is bringing her new husband Marcus to Thanksgiving this year. He's incredibly successful. Manages a billion-dollar hedge fund in Manhattan. Very high-profile clients. Your father and I think it might be best if you skip this year. You'd feel uncomfortable and honestly we don't want any awkwardness. Andrea's so proud of him and well, you know how these things are. Maybe next year. Love you, Mom. I stared at my phone in the back of the town car. My driver James glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Everything all right, Miss Chin? Fine, James. Just family things. I read it again. Then a third time. Each word felt like a small, calculated knife. You'd feel uncomfortable. Translation, you'd embarrass us. You know how these things are. Translation, you're the family failure and we need you to disappear when success shows up. I typed back, understood. No argument. No hurt feelings expressed. No explanation of why this was cruel. Just one word because I'd learned years ago that defending yourself to people determined to misunderstand you was pointless. Mom's response came 30 seconds later. You're so mature about this. I knew you'd understand. We'll do something special just as soon. Maybe lunch. That lunch would never happen. It never did. I put my phone away and looked out at the Manhattan skyline. My office building gleamed in the morning sun, 47 floors of steel and glass. The car pulled into the underground executive parking level, past the regular parking into the section marked Private Executive Suites Only. Have a good day, Miss Chin, James said as he opened my door. You too, James. See you at 5. The private elevator took me directly to the 45th floor. The doors opened to reveal floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, tasteful modern art on the walls, and my assistant Derek already at his desk. Morning, Melissa. Coffee's ready. Your 10 a.m. with Riverside Capital called. They're running 15 minutes late. And your 2 p.m. quarterly review is still on. Thanks, Derek. Who's the 2 p.m. again? He checked his tablet. Marcus Thornton. Whitmore and Associates. Quarterly portfolio review for account 47 Alpha. I froze for just a second. Marcus Thornton? Yes. Third quarterly review. Want me to pull his file? No, I remember now. Thanks. I walked into my office, closed the door and stood at the window. Marcus Thornton. My cousin Andrea's new husband. The man so successful that my presence at Thanksgiving would somehow diminish his shine. The man who, for the past 9 months, had been managing one of my investment accounts without knowing who I actually was. Account 47 Alpha was held under a trust, the Redwood Family Trust, managed through a law firm. Marcus had never met me in person. Our previous 2 quarterly reviews had been conducted via video conference, with my camera conveniently malfunctioning. He'd been speaking to a voice, reviewing numbers, collecting his substantial management fees. He had no idea that the $95 million portfolio he'd been managing belonged to the family disappointment who wasn't worthy of Thanksgiving dinner. I sat down at my desk and opened the file. Marcus Thornton, 34, Harvard MBA, 7 years at Goldman Sachs before joining Whitmore and Associates 3 years ago. Married to Andrea Chin 6 months ago in what Mom had described as the wedding of the century. I hadn't been invited to that either, coincidentally scheduled the same weekend as an unavoidable family trip to Napa. The portfolio had performed adequately. Nothing spectacular but solid returns. Conservative strategies. He was competent if unimaginative. My phone buzzed. A group text to the family chat. The one I was still included in probably because Mom forgot to remove me. Andrea, so excited for Thanksgiving. Marcus is bringing wine from a client who owns a vineyard in Bordeaux. Dad, he wants to talk to you about investment opportunities. Mom, wonderful. It'll be our most elegant Thanksgiving yet. Dad, looking forward to it. Good to have someone in the family who understands real wealth. Uncle Richard, about time we had some financial expertise at the table. Andrea, he's being so modest about it, but his clients include 3 Fortune 500 CEOs. I'm so lucky. I set the phone down. The irony was almost beautiful. They wanted financial expertise at the table? I'd built a $340 million personal portfolio by age 33. I was the principal investor in 6 different ventures. I sat on 2 corporate boards. Last month, Forbes had interviewed me for an article on young tech investors under my business name, M. Chin Capital, which was apparently not famous enough for my family to connect to me. But Andrea had married a hedge fund manager, and that was impressive in a way they could understand and brag about. He worked for a firm with a name. He managed other people's money. That fit their narrative of success. I'd built wealth. But I'd done it quietly, strategically, without their approval or involvement. And because they'd never bothered to ask what I actually did, because something with computers was enough for them to categorize and dismiss me, they had no idea. Started when I was 16. My cousin Andrea was the golden child, prettier, more charming, better at saying what adults wanted to hear. I was the weird one who liked math and spent too much time online. When Andrea made cheerleading captain, I made the robotics team. When Andrea dated the quarterback, I taught myself to code. "Why can't you be more like Andrea?" became my mother's favorite refrain. "She's so poised. So social. You need to put down the computer and learn to interact with people, Melissa." At family dinners, Andrea would talk about her plans: marketing degree, work in fashion or PR, marry someone successful. Everyone would nod approvingly. Then they'd turn to me. "And Melissa, still doing your computer things?" The tone made it clear. This was a phase, a quirk, something I'd grow out of once I got serious about life. I got into MIT. Full scholarship. My parents seemed almost disappointed. "It's so far away," Mom said. "And Boston is so cold. Andrea's going to U. Much better for networking." What she meant was, "Andrea's going somewhere glamorous where she'll meet the right kind of people. You're going somewhere for nerds." At MIT, I discovered I wasn't weird. I was exactly where I belonged. I double majored in computer science and economics. I interned at a fintech startup my sophomore year. By junior year, I'd built a trading algorithm that caught the attention of a venture capital firm. They offered me a job starting after graduation. Salary, $180,000. Plus equity. I called home excited. "That's nice, honey," Mom said. "Andrea just got engaged. To a lawyer. We're planning the wedding for next summer. You'll be a bridesmaid, of course." I was not, in fact, a bridesmaid. Andrea chose her sorority sisters instead. I was invited to the wedding, seated at a back table with distant relatives I'd never met. The lawyer marriage lasted 18 months. I didn't tell my family when I made my first million. I was 25, and it came from a combination of my salary, my equity in the startup, which got acquired, and smart investments I'd made using my own algorithm. I didn't tell them because I knew exactly what would happen. They'd either try to control it or dismiss it as luck. That I stayed quiet. I moved to New York. Kept my head down. I invested carefully. At family gatherings, the questions were always the same. "Still doing tech stuff? Are you seeing anyone? You know, Andrea's dating a doctor now. It's not too late to pivot to something more stable, Melissa." I'd smile. I'd nod. I'd give vague answers. And I'd leave early, returning to my real life. The one where I was building something they couldn't comprehend or diminish. By 30, my portfolio had crossed $200 million. I'd invested in 11 startups, 7 of which had been profitable exits. I'd bought a penthouse in Tribeca. I drove a modest car and wore regular clothes and kept my life private because I'd learned that the moment you show success to people who've decided you're supposed to fail, they either try to take it or convince themselves it's not real. Andrea's doctor boyfriend became Andrea's doctor fiancé, then ex-fiancé when he cheated with a nurse. The family rallied around her. She was the victim, the princess who deserved better. "At least you don't have to deal with heartbreak," Mom said to me at Sunday dinner. "The single life is so much simpler." I was in a relationship, actually, with James, who would later become my CFO. But I didn't tell them because they didn't ask, and I'd stopped offering information years ago. Then 6 months ago, Andrea met Marcus at a charity gala. Within 3 months they were engaged. Within 6, married. And suddenly, Andrea had reclaimed her throne as the family success story. The wedding I wasn't invited to was covered in the society pages. Hedge fund manager Marcus Thornton weds Andrea Chin in lavish Hamptons ceremony. There were photos of Mom and Dad beaming, of Andrea in a designer gown, of the intimate gathering of 300 guests. I saw it all on Instagram. The family group chat exploded with excitement. Marcus was brilliant. Marcus was successful. Marcus managed serious money for serious people. Finally, someone in the family who understood real finance. I almost laughed. Real finance? I'd been practicing real finance while they were still trying to explain to relatives what I did for a living. But I said nothing. I just watched. 9 months before the wedding, I'd been looking for a new portfolio manager for one of my diversified accounts. My primary investments I managed myself, but I believed in spreading risk. I wanted someone to handle a conservative, traditional portfolio, stocks, bonds, some real estate exposure. About $95 million that I wanted managed competently but not aggressively. My attorney, Richard Voss, recommended Whitmore and Associates. They're good, he said. Not flashy but solid returns. They work with high net worth individuals. Very discreet. Who would be managing it? Probably Marcus Thornton. He's their rising star. Used to be at Goldman. Smart guy, bit of an ego, but he knows what he's doing. Marcus Thornton, I repeated. You know him? No, I said. Never met him. Which was true. I hadn't. Andrea brought him to one family dinner before the engagement, but I'd been unable to attend. Actually, I'd been in Singapore closing a deal, but I told them I had the flu. Set it up through the Redwood Trust, I told Richard. I want complete anonymity. He reports to you, you report to me. Richard didn't ask why. He'd been my attorney for 7 years. He knew I valued privacy. The account was established. Marcus Thornton was assigned. The first quarterly review happened via video conference, my camera off. Technical difficulties, Richard explained. Miss Chin prefers audio only. Marcus hadn't questioned it. Why would he? The account was worth $95 million. His fees were substantial. As long as the money was real, who cared if the client was camera shy? I listened to him present his strategy. Conservative allocation, dividend-focused equities, some municipal bonds for tax efficiency. It was textbook. Safe. Exactly what I'd hired him to do. Sounds good, I said through the phone, slightly modulating my voice. Proceed. Excellent. And may I say, Ms. Chin, it's a pleasure to work with a client who understands the value of patience in investing. Too many people want quick returns. I almost laughed. If only he knew that my aggressive portfolio, the one I managed myself, had returned 34% last year. Indeed, I said. Slow and steady. The second quarterly review was the same. Performance was adequate. Returns were decent. Marcus was pleased with himself. I approved his continued strategy. Then came the wedding. I saw the Instagram post. I read Mom's gushing texts in the family chat about how Andrea had finally found a real winner. I noted Dad's comment about how it's good to have financial expertise in the family now. And I made a decision. The third quarterly review would be in person. I told Richard to set it up at my office. Are you sure? He asked. That breaks your anonymity. I'm sure. Tell him Ms. M. Chin from M. Chin Capital will meet with him personally. 45th floor, executive suite. This is going to be interesting, Richard said. Yes, I agreed. It really is. The disinvitation text arrived 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Mom's message was clear. I was an embarrassment, a potential source of awkwardness, someone who needed to be hidden when real success showed up. I could have told them right then. I could have sent a screenshot of my portfolio. I could have explained that Marcus literally worked for me, managed a fraction of my wealth, collected fees that I paid him. But that would have been defensive. Reactive. It would have looked like I was trying to prove something. Instead, I decided to let the universe handle it. Marcus had a quarterly review scheduled at my office 3 days after Mom's text. He'd been managing account 47 Alpha for 9 months without knowing who I was. Now he was about to find out. I didn't change the meeting. I didn't give him a heads up. I simply went about my week watching the family group chat fill with Thanksgiving excitement. Andrea. Marcus is bringing his famous pumpkin pie. He took a cooking class in Paris. Mom, how wonderful. Melissa, you're still okay with skipping this year, right? I know you understand. Me, yes. Understood. Dad, it'll be nice to have sophisticated conversation this year. Marcus knows the governor, apparently. Uncle Richard, I want to hear about his investment strategies. Maybe he can give us some tips. I could see it clearly. Thanksgiving dinner, Marcus holding court, explaining finance to people who thought a 401k was sophisticated investing. My parents beaming. Andrea glowing with reflected glory. And none of them knowing that the money Marcus managed, the fees he collected, the billion-dollar hedge fund credibility he was riding, a piece of it came from me. The irony was exquisite. Sunday afternoon, Andrea called me. This was rare, we barely spoke anymore. Melissa, how are you? I'm fine, Andrea. Congratulations on everything. Thank you. Listen, I heard about Thanksgiving. I want you to know it wasn't my idea. It's fine. It's just Marcus's career, you know? He works with very high-level people and Mom thought it might be easier if it was just, the inner circle this year. The inner circle. Of which I was not a part. I understand, I said. You're being so cool about this. I knew you would be. You've always been so independent, so content with your own thing. Not everyone needs the spotlight, right? Right, I said. And honestly, you'd probably be bored anyway. Marcus talks about finance stuff all the time. Super technical. I barely understand it and I'm married to him. She laughed. I'm sure, I said. Okay, well, I should go. We're meeting his parents for dinner. But let's grab coffee soon, okay? I want to hear about what is it you do again? Something with computers. Something like that. So cool. Okay, love you, bye. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, phone in hand, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger exactly. Not hurt. Something colder and clearer. I'd spent 17 years being patient with them. Being the bigger person. Letting their dismissiveness roll off my back. Building my life quietly while they decided I was the failure. But this. Uninviting me to protect Andrea's husband's ego? A man who was literally managing my money? The patience was over. Monday morning I dressed carefully. Tom Ford suit, navy blue, perfectly tailored. Louboutin heels. My Patek Philippe watch. The one I'd bought myself when I hit my first $50 million. Hair pulled back in a sleek bun. Minimal jewelry except for the diamond studs that cost more than most people's cars. I looked like exactly what I was. Someone with serious money. Big meeting. Derek asked when I arrived. Quarterly review, I said. Should be interesting. The Whitmore and Associates guy? That's the one. Want me to sit in? No. This one's personal. Derek raised an eyebrow but didn't ask. He'd worked for me for 4 years. He knew when to let things unfold. At 1:45 p.m. building security called up. Miss Chin, a Marcus Thornton from Whitmore and Associates is here for your 2 p.m. Send him up. Derek will meet him. I watched from my office as the elevator doors opened. Marcus stepped out and I got my first in-person look at Andrea's prize husband. Tall, good-looking in a generic way, expensive suit, confident stride. He had that Goldman Sachs polish. The kind that came from years of being told you're special because you work at a prestigious firm. Derek greeted him professionally. Mr. Thornton. Welcome. Can I get you anything? Water. Coffee. I'm fine, thank you. Marcus looked around the office, taking in the art, the view, the obvious wealth. Impressive space. Miss Chin will be with you in just a moment. Please have a seat. I waited exactly 3 minutes. Let him sit. Let him wonder. Let him start to feel that small twist of uncertainty that comes when you're in someone else's territory. Then I walked out. Marcus stood up, professional smile in place, hand extended. Miss Chin, it's a pleasure to finally meet in Pur. He stopped. His hand froze mid-extension. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, disbelief. Melissa. Hello, Marcus. I shook his hand firmly, then gestured to the conference room. Shall we? What are you? I don't understand. You're here for a quarterly review. Let's review. I walked into the conference room. After a moment of stunned silence, he followed. Derek had already set up the presentation materials. I took my seat at the head of the table. Marcus sat down slowly, like someone who just realized they'd walked into the wrong meeting. I think there's been some confusion, he said. I'm here to meet with M. Chin, the Redwood Family Trust account holder. That would be me. Melissa Chin. Chin Capital. The Redwood Family Trust is one of my investment vehicles. His face went pale. You're M. Chin? I am. But I thought, the account you never. I prefer privacy. My attorney Richard Voss handles the administrative details. But this is my account. My $95 million. Which you've been managing for 9 months. I watched him process this. Watched the numbers click into place. Watched him realize that Andrea's dismissed, unimportant cousin, the one not worthy of Thanksgiving dinner, was the client paying his substantial fees. I had no idea, he finally said. I'm aware. That was intentional. I opened the portfolio file. Now shall we discuss performance? I have several questions about your Q3 allocation decisions. For the next 20 minutes I put him through his paces. Every decision, every trade, every rationale. I asked technical questions about beta coefficients, Sharpe ratios, tax loss harvesting strategies. I questioned his sector weightings, his international exposure, his duration risk in the fixed income allocation. Marcus was good at his job. I wouldn't have hired Whitmore and Associates if they weren't competent. But he was visibly rattled. His usual smooth presentation kept stuttering. He'd start to explain something, then seem to remember who he was talking to, and his confidence would waver. The emerging markets position, I said, looking at the allocation chart. You're underweight relative to the benchmark. Why? Well, given the volatility in that sector, I thought a conservative approach. The whole point of this portfolio is conservative. But conservative doesn't mean timid. Emerging markets are down 12% from their peak. This is a buying opportunity, not a time to hide in large-cap domestic equities. I can adjust that allocation. Please do. I'd like to see a rebalancing proposal by end of week. I made a note. What about the real estate exposure? You're heavy in REITs but light on direct property holdings. Direct property requires more active management, and I wasn't sure. I have a team for that. If there are attractive opportunities in commercial real estate, I expect you to identify them. That's what I'm paying you for. Of course. Absolutely. I let the silence sit for a moment. Marcus shifted in his seat, then seemed to realize he needed to address the elephant in the room. Melissa, I have to say I'm shocked. I had no idea you were involved in this level of... Andrea never mentioned that you... Andrea doesn't know what I do. Neither do my parents. Neither does anyone in the family, actually. But why? If you've built this kind of wealth, why wouldn't you? Tell them. I smiled. What would be the point? So they could take credit for it? Try to control it? Ask for loans they'd never repay? Or worse, convince themselves it wasn't real because it didn't fit their narrative of who I'm supposed to be. Marcus said nothing. He couldn't really. Because he'd married into that family. He'd seen how they operated. You seem like a smart man, Marcus. So let me ask you something. In the 9 months you've been managing this account, did you ever wonder who M. Chin was? Yes, of course. But client confidentiality. Did you ever Google it? Chin Capital. He hesitated. Once or twice. And what did you find? Several articles. Forbes mentions. Some tech investment pieces. I didn't connect it to you because... Well? Because Andrea's weird cousin who does something with computers couldn't possibly be a serious investor? He had the grace to look embarrassed. I suppose I made assumptions. You did. So did my entire family. Those assumptions have been very useful to me. I closed the portfolio file. Now let's discuss expectations going forward. This account will continue as is. You'll report to Richard Voss. You'll provide quarterly reviews in person, now that we've established the relationship. And you'll maintain complete confidentiality about who your client is. Of course. That's standard practice. Good. Because here's what's going to happen, Marcus. In 3 weeks you're going to Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. Andrea will be proud of you. My parents will be impressed by you. My uncle will ask you for investment advice. And you will act like you've never met me. His eyes widened. You're not going to tell them? Why would I? They uninvited me because my presence would make you uncomfortable. Because I'd feel out of place around your success. I leaned back in my chair. Do you know what my total portfolio value is, Marcus? Not just this account, my entire holdings. He shook his head. $340 million. Give or take. This $95 million account you manage? That's about 28% of my total wealth. The rest I manage myself, through direct investments, private equity, venture capital. Last year my personal returns were 34%. This year I'm tracking at 41%. Marcus's face had gone from pale to ashen. I own a penthouse in Tribeca worth $12 million. I have a house in the Hamptons, 3 properties down from where you got married actually. I sit on the boards of 2 technology companies worth a combined $2.8 billion. I was the principal investor in a biotech startup that's about to IPO at a projected $400 million valuation. Forbes is running a feature on me next month about successful young tech investors. I stood up. Marcus automatically stood as well. So when you sit at Thanksgiving dinner and my father asks about your investment philosophy, when my mother gushes about how wonderful it is to finally have financial expertise in the family, when Andrea looks at you like you're her trophy, remember this meeting. Remember that the person they dismissed, the person they found embarrassing, is the reason you're collecting management fees on a $95 million account. Melissa, he seemed to be struggling for words. I don't know what to say. Say you'll have the rebalancing proposal to Richard by Friday. Yes. Of course. But, can I ask why you're doing this? Why not just tell them the truth? I walked to the window, looked out at the Manhattan skyline. Because, Marcus, the truth is only valuable to people who are willing to hear it. My family decided who I was when I was 16 years old. They've been congratulating themselves on that assessment ever since. Nothing I say will change their minds. But this. I turned back to him. This is justice. You're going to sit at their table, accept their admiration, and know that it's all based on a fundamental misunderstanding. You're going to see them dismiss me, mock me, pity me, and you're going to know what they don't. And you're going to live with that knowledge and never be able to share it. That seems cruel, maybe, but not as cruel as uninviting your daughter to Thanksgiving because she might embarrass the golden child's husband. I picked up the portfolio file. We're done here. Derek will see you out. Marcus stood there for a moment looking like he wanted to say something else. Then he seemed to think better of it, gathered his materials and walked to the door. He paused. For what it's worth, I think they're idiots. They're my family, I said. I'll decide what they are. He nodded and left. I stood at the window for a long time after he was gone, watching the city below. My phone buzzed. The family group chat. Mom, just confirmed the menu with the caterer. This is going to be our best Thanksgiving ever. Andrea, Marcus is so excited. He's never had a real family holiday before. Dad, looking forward to talking business with him. Finally, someone at the table who speaks my language. I smiled. Oh, this was going to be interesting. The week before Thanksgiving, things started happening. Wednesday, Richard called. Just received Marcus's rebalancing proposal. It's very thorough. Very aggressive, actually, much more than I expected from him. Good. He's motivated. He also asked if you'd reconsider attending Thanksgiving. Said he'd be happy to explain to your family that he knows you professionally, that you're a respected colleague. What did you tell him? That it wasn't my place to convey messages. But Melissa, this is eating at him. He's called 3 times this week with portfolio questions that could have waited until the quarterly review. Let him call. It's good for him to take this account seriously. You know, he could just tell Andrea the truth. He won't. How do you know? Because then he'd have to explain why he didn't tell her immediately. Every day that passes makes it harder to reveal. By now he's trapped in the secret as much as I am. The only difference is I chose this trap. He walked into it. Richard was quiet for a moment. You've thought this through. I have. And you're absolutely sure about not going to Thanksgiving? Richard, they uninvited me. I'm simply honoring their wishes. Friday, I got a text from Marcus. Miss Chin, I wanted to let you know the rebalancing proposal has been submitted. Also, I've been thinking about our conversation. Would it be possible to schedule a call? I didn't respond. Saturday, another text from the family chat. Andrea, 2 days until Turkey Day. Marcus is making his famous Brussels sprouts too. Mom, I'm so grateful for this family. Well, most of it. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Dad, Andrea, you really hit the jackpot with this one. Uncle Richard, can't wait to hear about the hedge fund business. I've always been fascinated by high finance. I turned off notifications. Monday morning, Derek caught me before I went into my office. You have a visitor. Didn't have an appointment, but she says she's your cousin. Andrea Chin. I paused. Where is she? Reception. Want me to send her away? No. I'll see her. Conference room. Andrea was wearing head-to-toe designer Chanel suit, Hermes bag, shoes that cost more than some people's monthly rent. She looked polished, perfect, every inch the successful hedge fund manager's wife. She also looked nervous. Melissa, thank you for seeing me. I know I should have called, but I was in the neighborhood and... You're never in this neighborhood, Andrea. What do you want? She blinked at my directness. We'd always played nice before, maintained the pretense of sisterly affection. I wanted to talk to you about Thanksgiving. I'm not coming. We've established that. I know, but, Melissa, Marcus has been acting strange all week. He's distracted, stressed. Yesterday I asked him what was wrong and he said it was work stuff, but I think he feels bad about you not being invited. That's between you and Marcus. He asked if we could invite you. But Mom already finalized the seating chart and the catering order, and it would be awkward to change things now, and honestly I think it's better this way. You'd be miserable anyway. You never liked these big family things. Is that what you came here to say? No. I came to ask, what do you do exactly? Marcus asked me yesterday what your job was and I realized I don't actually know. You're in tech, right? Something with websites. I almost laughed. Here it was. The curiosity sparked not by genuine interest in me, but by her husband's sudden questions. I'm an investor, I said. Oh. Like stocks and stuff. Private equity, venture capital, direct investments in technology companies. Some traditional portfolio management. That's so cool. So you're like what, a financial advisor? No. I'm a principal investor. I invest my own capital. Wow. I didn't know you had capital to invest. Good for you. She said it like I told her I had a nice savings account. So you work for an investment firm? I own an investment firm. Chin Capital. This is my office. Andrea looked around, really seeing it for the first time. The art. The view. The expensive furniture. The implicit wealth in every detail. This is your company? It is. Like you own it? You're not just renting office space here. Andrea, I own the firm. I manage investments worth several $100 million. This isn't a side hustle. This is what I've built over the past 12 years. She stared at me. Several $100 million? Yes. But, why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't Mom and Dad know? They never asked. Neither did you. We thought you were just doing some tech job. Like coding or website design or something. I did that too. That's how I started. But I built it into something bigger. Andrea sat down slowly. Does Marcus know? There was. The real question. You'd have to ask him, I said. Melissa, please. Does my husband know that you have... She couldn't seem to finish the sentence. Andrea, if you want to know what Marcus knows, ask Marcus. That's between you and him. She looked at me with something I'd never seen from her before. Actual vulnerability. He's been so weird this week. And now you're telling me you're some kind of investment mogul and he's asking questions about you and I need to know if something's going on. Nothing's going on. Your husband is a hedge fund manager. I'm an investor. We exist in the same professional ecosystem. That's all. But you've met him? Professionally. I've met a lot of people professionally. Melissa, please. Just tell me. Tell you what? That your husband respects my work? That the professional community takes me seriously even if our family doesn't? What exactly do you want me to say, Andrea? She stood up, anger flashing across her face. You know what? This is so typical of you. Always acting like you're above everyone. Like you're too good for the family. We try to include you and you make it difficult. You uninvited me to Thanksgiving. Because you'd be uncomfortable. Marcus works with Fortune 500 CEOs. What would you even talk about? The irony was so perfect I almost told her everything right then. Almost explained that her husband worked for me, that the account he managed was mine, that the fees he collected came from my wealth. But I didn't. Because the look on her face when she found out, if she found out, would be so much more satisfying if it came from Marcus. Let him explain why he'd kept this secret. Let him navigate that conversation. You're right, I said instead. I probably would be uncomfortable. It's better this way. So we're okay? We're fine, Andrea. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. She left, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. The questions forming. The suspicion that something wasn't quite adding up. Good that I spent Thanksgiving in the Hamptons. My house, the 3 properties down from where Andrea and Marcus had gotten married, was quiet, peaceful, exactly what I needed. I'd invited James, my former boyfriend, current CFO, and his wife, Derek and his husband, and Richard Voss and his family. We had dinner at 3 p.m., cooked together, laughed, told stories. These were my people. The ones who'd seen me build everything from scratch. The ones who knew what I was worth, not in dollars, but in determination and intelligence and refusal to accept other people's limitations. To chosen family, Richard said, raising his glass. To chosen family, we echoed. My phone was off. I didn't need to see the family group chat filling with pictures of their perfect Thanksgiving. I didn't need Andrea's Instagram posts about her amazing husband and her amazing life. I knew exactly what was happening there. I'd lived it enough times to write the script. Mom would be holding court in the kitchen, directing everyone. Dad would be asking Marcus about investment strategies he didn't understand. Uncle Richard would be trying to impress Marcus with his limited knowledge of the market. Andrea would be glowing, proud, the center of attention as Mrs. Marcus Thornton. And Marcus would be sitting there watching my parents praise him, listening to their barely concealed contempt for me, and knowing the truth they refused to see. That was consequence enough. Friday morning I turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls. 63 text messages. 12 voicemails. Most were from numbers I didn't recognize. Several were from Andrea. 3 were from Marcus's work number. 2 were from my parents. And 1 was from Marcus's personal cell, time-stamped 11:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving night. I listened to it. Miss Chin, Melissa, I need to talk to you. Something happened at dinner. Please call me back. It's urgent. Please. The text from Andrea was simpler. Call me right now. From Mom, Melissa, we need to talk about what Andrea told us. Call us immediately. From Dad, this is unacceptable. You deliberately humiliated this family. I smiled. Apparently Marcus had broken. I called Richard. Did I miss something interesting? Oh, Melissa. He was laughing. Oh, you have no idea. Andrea called me last night at midnight, screaming about client confidentiality breaches. She'd apparently confronted Marcus about whether he knew you professionally and he caved. Told her everything. Which led to her telling your parents. Which led to your father calling me, threatening legal action for conspiracy to deceive the family. Legal action for what? That's what I asked. He couldn't articulate an actual cause of action. He's just furious that you made him look foolish. I didn't make him look like anything. He did that himself. I explained that to him. I also explained that client confidentiality agreements work both ways, and that Marcus violated his by disclosing your identity without your permission. Whitmore and Associates is not happy with him right now. Is he in trouble? Let's just say his bosses want to understand why he told his wife about a client's private financial information. Even if that client is family. I felt a small twinge of something, not quite guilt but awareness. I didn't want him to lose his job. He won't. But he will be reprimanded. And he should be. You're not the one who broke confidentiality, Melissa. He is. What did my parents say? Your mother wants to know why you've been lying to them. Your father wants to know why you hid your success. Andrea wants to know if you did this to embarrass her. They're all very focused on what you did wrong and remarkably uninterested in examining their own behavior. So typical. Yes. What should I do? What do you want to do? I thought about it. I could call them. I could explain. I could try to make them understand that I hadn't hidden anything. They'd simply never bothered to look. But what would be the point? Nothing, I said. I want to do nothing. Nothing. They uninvited me to Thanksgiving because I was an embarrassment. Now they know I'm not who they thought I was, and they're angry that I didn't correct their assumptions. But Richard, their assumptions were their problem, not mine. I don't owe them an explanation for the life I built while they were busy dismissing me. That's a healthy boundary. Besides, anything I say now will sound like gloating. If I wanted to gloat, I would have told them years ago. The fact that they found out this way from Marcus, after they'd already made their decision about me, that's just karma. What about Marcus? He's called 6 times. He violated confidentiality. He gets nothing from me. And Andrea? I thought about my cousin. The golden child. The one who'd always been chosen over me, praised over me, preferred over me. The one who'd married a man she thought was the pinnacle of success, only to discover that her dismissed cousin was the one paying his fees. Andrea gets to live with the knowledge that she spent 20 years pitying someone she should have been learning from. Cold. Accurate. Richard laughed. You know they're not going to let this go. They will eventually. Because I'm going to make it very clear that if they want access to me now that they know what I'm worth, the price is acknowledging how they treated me before. And they won't pay it. Their pride won't allow it. You're probably right. I know I am. They'll be angry for a while. They'll tell themselves I deceived them, that I was sneaky, that I should have told them. They'll make themselves the victims in this story. And then when I don't apologize, when I don't come crawling back eager for their approval, they'll move on. They'll find someone else to praise, someone else to center their narrative around. And I'll keep doing what I've always done, building my life without their input or permission. What about Marcus? What about him? His career may take a hit from this. Client confidentiality violations are serious. Then he shouldn't have violated it. I didn't force him to tell Andrea. He made that choice. Those are his consequences to manage. 6 weeks later, I got an email from Marcus. Subject: resignation and apology. Question: I wanted to inform you personally that I've resigned from Whitmore and Associates. The firm and I agreed it was best given the circumstances. I've recommended my colleague Jennifer Santos to take over Account 47 Alpha. She's excellent and I believe you'll be pleased with her work. I also want to apologize. I violated your confidentiality and there's no excuse for that. You trusted me with your portfolio, and I betrayed that trust by disclosing your identity. I've learned a hard lesson about professional boundaries and I hope you can forgive me someday. For what it's worth, I told your family something else that night. I told them they were fools for not seeing what was right in front of them. I told them you were one of the most sophisticated investors I'd ever worked with, and that their ignorance of your success was a testament to their complete lack of interest in knowing you. I told them that if my future children ever accomplish something extraordinary, I hope I'm smart enough to notice. Your father asked me to leave after that. Andrea and I are in counseling. I don't know if our marriage will survive this. She's angry that I kept your secret and I understand why. But I also can't shake the feeling that her anger is less about the secret and more about the fact that you were successful in a way that makes her uncomfortable. I'm sorry for my part in all of this. You deserved better from your family and you certainly deserved better from me. Sincerely, Marcus Thornton. I read it twice then forwarded it to Richard without comment. He called 5 minutes later. Well, that's something. It is. Are you going to respond? No. He apologized. He defended you to your family. He's losing his marriage over this. He's losing his marriage because he violated professional ethics and kept secrets from his wife. That's not my fault. True. But Melissa, the man stood up for you. To your father's face. That took courage. It took guilt. That's different. Maybe. But I think he meant it. I looked out my office window. Snow was starting to fall over Manhattan, turning the city into something clean and new. It doesn't matter if he meant it, I said. What matters is that he finally saw the truth. They all did. Not because I convinced them or proved myself to them, but because the universe put it right in front of their faces in a way they couldn't ignore or dismiss. And how does that feel? Quiet, I said. It feels quiet. And it did. The anger I'd carried for so long, the hurt of being dismissed, the frustration of being underestimated, it had burned off like morning fog. What remained was just the simple fact of my life. I had built something extraordinary. I had done it without their help, without their approval, without their belief. Their blindness to that was their loss, not mine. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi Melissa, this is Jennifer Santos from Whitmore and Associates. I wanted to introduce myself and schedule our first quarterly review for Account 47 Alpha. I'm honored to be taking over this portfolio. Would January 15th at 2 p.m. work for you? I texted back, that works. And Jennifer? Let's keep this strictly professional. No personal questions. Absolutely. That's how I prefer to work as well. Perfect. The family group chat had been quiet for weeks. I was still technically in it but no one posted anymore. The silence was louder than any argument could have been. Then 2 days before Christmas, a text from Mom. Melissa, I think we should talk. Can we meet for lunch after the holidays? I stared at it for a long time. Finally, I typed, I don't think so, Mom. But thank you for asking. Her response came immediately, we're your family. You can't just cut us off. I'm not cutting you off. I'm simply choosing not to invest time and energy in relationships that have consistently devalued me. You uninvited me to Thanksgiving because you were embarrassed by who you thought I was. Now you want to have lunch because you know who I actually am. I'm not interested in relationships that are conditional on my net worth. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, that's not fair. You're right. It's not. But it's honest. And I've decided that honesty is more important to me than fairness. No response. I put my phone away and went back to work. I had a board meeting in an hour. A portfolio review after that. Dinner with James and Derek to discuss Q1 projections. A life that was full and meaningful and entirely my own. The family would go on without me. Andrea would recover or she wouldn't. Marcus would rebuild his career or he wouldn't. My parents would find someone new to be proud of, some other success story they could claim. And I would keep building. Keep investing. Keep proving not to them but to myself, that the quiet girl who liked computers had been right all along. Success isn't about who believes in you. It's about whether you believe in yourself enough to build something extraordinary, even when everyone around you insists you're meant for something small. I believed. And that made all the difference.